Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Throat Punch Monday. I'm your host, VTT's Pacific Tita, aka Len, and I have VTT's mental health warrior Clifford joining me as well, and Dr. Jenna. And she's going to be talking to us about her career and being a military spouse and all of that. So it is the month of May, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff. Cause I mean, like I've looked up this calendar, right? And so, you know how each month there's like you're celebrating something national, like it's literally American Cheese Month. And then I just found out that it's also Celiac Disease Awareness Month. And actually, the team, Cliff and Jenna, have a lot to, say about that. And it's National Moving Month and Barbecue Month. National Barbecue.
My family out in Kansas City, barbecue rocks.
So anyway, Cliff, go ahead and take us away if you have anything to share.
Oh yeah, so
yes.
Veterans Trash Talk, we're part of that group, and they have T-shirts, and I'm very excited to announce that I got the mental health warrior T-shirts are done and they're out, and I want to show you guys the first ones.
Awesome.
It says this actually is my '69 Mustang on it. It's green. I don't know if you guys can tell if it's green with my background,
I like
but
that.
It says Veterans Trash Talk Mental Health Warrior, and then on the back it says, if you're in crisis, text home to 741-741 to speak to a crisis counselor. So it's a T-shirt you can have that may actually save a life. A lot of people, I'm surprised, don't know about the texting number. And anybody can text that. You don't have to have insurance. It's free. Mm-hmm. You text that number, and if you're, Lynn, you remember when Linda was on the show, she talked about that, with her daughter, about kids being able to text, and then they'll get you online with the counselor, and you can talk about anything, what's going on in your life, if you're being bullied or if you're suicidal or just anything, and they'll get you the help that you need. And so I was actually talking with her and came up with the idea for the teacher. So I'm super excited to have them. We got them now. And I just wanted to show everybody them. They're not available yet on the website, but soon to be available on the website, I hope. So
awesome. When are they launching? Do you know?
Well, we got them. I ordered 150 for myself for my business. Okay. And I haven't talked to Nick yet about putting them on the website, but I think I'm going to ask him if they will, because I think it's a good thing, right? You can wear a T-shirt and it has a text number. You never know who's going to see it and save a life. I got my teenage son wearing them, and Dr. Viana, if you want one, tell me your shirt size. I'll be more than happy to bring you one the next time I see you. I know I gave you coffee cups the last time I was in your office, and
which we love. We love the coffee cups.
So just let me know your size, and if you got somebody, I don't remember the other person. Okay, time out. So if anybody doesn't know, and you're gonna find out, Dr. Valenia, is that right? Did I say that right? Valenia?
Yep, Valenia,
is my hearing doctor. So that's just how I met her, and visiting with her. I thought she was a really awesome lady, and was really inspired by her and her story and how she became a doctor. And I was told Lynn, I said, we got to get her on our show. So that's, so now you got a little background. I know a little bit about her. She helps me with my hearing problem. For me, I was injured in Iraq and lost, my hearing's pretty bad. She'll tell you that. Yes.
Wait, are you part of the 3M lawsuit? Did you get some money back from that?
I didn't join it, but I probably should have. I mean,
I've been getting calls
normal prior to deployment. And I have the hearing test prior to deployment normal, coming back from deployment. Whack.
Yeah.
And that was 2006, 08. So that was right around that time frame.
It was around that time frame. And so I remember I contacted a law group because I think it was COVID and there was nothing else to do. And we're like, we were like sitting at home, and I'm like, oh, let me just see what this is about. And they said if you used, it was the black ones or the yellow ones. And we were issued those on the ship, because there's certain parts of the ship where it gets so loud that so we had it like in a little medicine bottle almost. And then we had it strapped to our belt. So we had it strapped to our belt, and every time we went through those areas, we had to plug them in. But so they were like, oh, you're entitled. But then I heard that they're only giving like dollars. So you're probably only going to get like $3 or something.
Yeah. Which is kind of sad, but I don't know. I don't know how many, I don't join the original lawsuit. I don't know how all that works, but so one thing I didn't realize is when your hearing's bad and you don't realize it, is when the hearing aids in my ears for the first time, I couldn't believe it. I was almost in tears because I was hearing things that I hadn't heard in forever. Now everything's like super loud, and I don't want to get into that too much. But she's had to tweak my hearing aids a couple of times, but that's the normal process. When you get hearing aids, because your brain has to kind of reprogram itself, I think, to get used to the sound because it wasn't hearing it. And of course, I have ringing in my ears.
So I
Really
know
bad.
that you just retired, right? And your wife
Yep.
is still active duty. So you have
Mhm.
Tricare and you have the
Mhm.
VA. So
Mhm.
did you use Dr. Valenia through Tricare or through VA?
Through
Tricare.
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 Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Tricare, do they cover the hearing aids?
They do if
That's
you
awesome.
are Tricare Prime active duty.
Okay.
And that's for active duty members and then their dependents as well. But the second you are on Tricare Select, Tricare Prime Retiree, you have to try to go through the VA if you're the person that did serve. And then if you're a family member, that benefit goes away. So the military community, they care a lot about you while you're active duty as far as your hearing health.
Mhm.
And they really, we work with the PCM to get it approved. There are strict guidelines just with everything with Tricare as far as what we can get approved. But the nice thing is as long as you meet the requirements, you get those hearing aids no cost to you through your insurance. So I always encourage people that are Tricare Prime active duty, get those hearing tests, especially if you are going to be deploying, things like that.
Right.
That baseline test becomes so valuable at that point, especially if you are looking to claim a change. And we do more comprehensive testing than your hearing van that
Yeah.
pulls up to the pier.
Beep, beep.
My
beep. Do you hear that
my
beep?
husband will tell, yeah, he's told me stories about that. I
Mhm.
did make him sit after deployment and get
Now, I have
full
a
hearing test.
question. So you know how
Yeah.
sometimes husbands don't listen, or are they deaf, or are they not listening? Because like my husband's active duty, he has Tricare. I need to refer him out to you.
Yes.
So ladies with
Send him
active
out.
duty husbands, send them. they
It's
they might
probably-
listen better. Who knows?
There's
Yeah,
probably
right.
a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B in there.
I heard that like men just tune out sometimes higher pitches, and so they're able to zone out their wives talking all the time.
It's a terrible inconvenience that the first thing that you lose as you get older is high frequencies, and that
Mhm.
tends to be where women's voices are. So a lot of times they're like, well, my wife says this, my partner says this, my girlfriend says this. They're all mumbling. I'm fine. And sometimes they are mumblers because I've met them too. And I'm like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
you are a mumbler and you are talking quite soft. And then other times I'm like, let's talk about how your partner is a mumbler, and also let's talk about getting you to hear a little bit better too. So it is a nice session for everybody involved. We say that hearing aids or any type of treatment for hearing loss, whether that's identifying different ways to communicate, is beneficial for the entire family. Everybody benefits. Everybody wins.
It's
You hear that,
funny.
husbands?
Everybody wins.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you bring up a good point. I just want to go back to it, is that a lot of people don't understand that Tricare Select does not cover hearing aids. And so if you're on active duty, be sure before you leave, especially if your family member has a hearing problem, to get that taken care of prior to, in case you're going to go on Tricare Select. And also, if you are retiring, you can go into the VA system. I found this out that because I retired last August, that if you have, because I'm doing a soft entry into the VA, but if I had those hearing aids now, let's say I switch to the VA, they have to continue with the current hearing aids that I have, or something very similar to. So that's important too, if you're active duty military retiring, to get those hearings tested done, and be sure and get that done prior to you walking out the door, because it makes it a lot easier for me, because my wife was still active duty. I had the availability to do a soft entry into the VA, and it makes things a lot easier. So
I feel like when you process out, that's part of, like, you know how you have to do all the medical evaluations, like hearing is part of that. And so I think a big thing is that if you're active duty, don't lie. Don't just sit there and keep clicking the button if you don't hear it. Like if you don't hear anything, you don't hear anything, and that's another big deal, is that like we're just so trained to just suck it up and keep moving. Like even when it comes to hearing, and we've been around, like I lived on an aircraft carrier
Oh
underneath
yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
airplanes and the arresting gears and the catapults. It was loud,
That's
so
also why all of you can fall asleep anywhere, because
Mhm.
you are so used to
Yeah.
just having that constant noise on in the background, which is also why a lot of people that have served or are currently serving, whether you're deployed or not, are experience the ringing in the ears too. You're
Yep.
exposed to whether
Tinnitus.
it's constant noise, exactly. So whether that's constant or in relation to a blast, there's so much more than just there's so much more to hearing tests and hearing evaluations than the hearing van leads you all to believe. So it
Right.
is I think that's one of the things that people are quite surprised by, is just the comprehensive nature that goes into it. A lot of the screenings and tests that you are all doing active duty is just to make sure you're within that OSHA requirement of no shifts in hearing. But there really is so much more to hearing, and that we go into if we need to. I mean, there are some people that their tests say that everything's normal, but they don't feel normal. And we talk about what that means from a processing standpoint. There's a lot of research being pumped in through the VA system right now, actually, that looks at auditory processing in relation to blast exposure overseas. And what does that mean? And how does that shape your right now? But not only your right now, how does that shape 10 years from now when you're having a conversation in a restaurant with your family? It's a pretty dynamic, really dynamic field that I'm pretty grateful to be a part of.
I have a question. So during this
Yeah.
COVID era, the pandemic, the third time I got COVID,
Oh,
yeah, I got it
how
like
lucky are you?
2020. I am so lucky. And then I got it 2021 in January. And then I got it 2021 in December and January. So the last time I got it, I couldn't hear. Everything felt like I was underwater the whole freaking time until like 2 weeks later, my ears just popped and it was good.
Mhm.
Like, have you seen a lot of those cases? And have you seen some that are long-term effects because of COVID?
A great question. So what I can speak to right now is there is definitely a lot of research going into that. What are the effects? A lot of times it is hard to say X caused Y, because some of these people that are experiencing a sudden hearing loss don't have a prior hearing test. So from the world of research, we like to have a before and after, just like the military likes to have a
Right.
before and after. So, but what I can say is a lot of times if you're feeling really stuffed up, all here, that sinus pressure also backs in to your middle ear space, which causes that feeling as if you're underwater or your ears are plugged and you're trying to talk through that.
Right.
We've also seen, whether it's in relation to COVID, the disease itself, or in relation to the vaccine, some people, if they've had ringing in their ears before, some will say that they've had a temporary increase in that ringing. As a statement, there is no label on there right now saying that one will cause the other.
Because I have
but
tinnitus. And then when the last time I got COVID, I was vaccinated. So
Mhm.
who knows?
It is, it's very, and that's where they're looking into seeing, is tinnitus going to become one of the side effects of COVID, one of the temporary side effects of the vaccine. We always encourage our patients, especially ones that were like, oh, I noticed an increase in the ringing in between vaccine number 1 and number 2. What am I supposed to do? Should I get number 3? And that's where we always encourage people to talk to the doctor. We could look to see, is it medication related? Is it a mix of a lot of other things? Are you just predisposed to that ringing in your ears? So it's been very, very interesting. And something that's also pretty interesting from a career standpoint is I graduated with my doctoral degree in 2020. So my audiology
Right.
world
Congratulations.
is only COVID times. I always tell my patients, like, oh, next time I see you, maybe you can see my whole face. Like, a lot of them haven't seen my whole face yet.
Mhm.
We keep our whole face on our business cards, just as like a reminder, like,
Mhm.
hey, we're still the same people. You just can only see from here up.
What
It's
made you
been-
what made you go into audiology? Like, walk us through that story.
So it actually is a very cute story, heartwarming story, I think.
We
So
love
I
cute, heartwarming stories.
Do I need tissues? Because
No.
okay. Because I'm a crier and I will ugly cry.
I went to Penn State for undergrad. So I'm a big Penn Stater for all of you out there. There are a lot of us. Big Penn Stater, but wasn't a big Penn Stater until I went there. I was one of those people that, never went to a football game before I went to Penn State. So I was an anomaly. It's a lot of fun. If anyone hasn't gone to one, it's a lot of fun. But ever since I was in 4th grade, so when I was quite younger, I wanted to be a meteorologist. I wanted to be a weather woman. I wanted to move to Florida, and I wanted to chase hurricanes. That was my dream. Not saying I'm not my dream job right now, but that was my dream. And I was going to have 2 dogs, and they were going to be my hurricane hunting dogs. And I was going to live in Florida, and we were going to do reports from the beach. And like, I had this all played out. And then in high school, I was like, oh, do I really like this as a hobby? I mean, at that point, I was watching the Weather Channel constantly, tracking every hurricane coming in. And then I was like, okay, well, if I get into Penn State, which is one of the best meteorology schools, I was like, I have to go there and at least give my 4th grade dream a try. And I got there and I realized, wow, I love the weather and I hate math. And I also hate chemistry. And those 2 classes happen to be the first ones.
Yeah, it's all math and
So
chemistry, actually.
all of it. And I have a lot of friends that are meteorologists. Like all of my friends a lot of them are meteorologists because I met them all my freshman year of college or are in some sort of earth and mineral sciences degree. So shout out to all of them. And I was sitting there and I was like, I need a plan B. Like, I know I want to be in a field with people. I want to do something with people. I don't know to what extent. I loved working with kids. That was the pediatric world was a fascinating one to me. Little infant development, fascinating. And I was like, I just don't know what to do with that. And my one very good friend that I met through the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences at Penn State, he was like, you remind me a lot of my sister's audiologist. And I was like, ooh, I have no idea what that is. But that seems like something I should look into because he was very supportive of trying to, everyone in college is trying to figure things out. And I looked into it and he was telling me about, he had 2 siblings that he had more siblings, but 2 of them had hearing loss and their levels of hearing loss were very different. Some were progressive, and he talked about what it was like to have a sister with a cochlear implant from when she was very young, a brother with a cochlear implant when he was a little bit older. And I loved it. And I talked to his mom about what it was like to be a mom of kids with hearing loss at very different stages. And I have him to thank for leading me into this path here. And it's been really great. Really, really
That's
great.
awesome. Now, did they do ASL also, sign language and stuff?
So they did not. They
Okay.
were primary oral communication. So there are the best type of communication is the one that you have access to. So there are some members of the deaf community, especially a lot in the DC area where we are, that communicate utilizing sign language or a form of total communication. And then there are other people with hearing loss, whether it's severe to profound, that communicate orally and supplement that by reading lips. That's why the pandemic with masks has been really hard for people with hearing loss.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're at a level, even if it's mild, you're like, oh, I didn't realize how much I relied on facial expressions and facial cues. And with that essentially gone at this point, you really do lose some of that. So it's been a really interesting time for speech pathologists and audiologists trying to supplement their care and therapies for the younger ones who are just learning how to utilize their devices and communicate in an oral world. And then it also for people that may not have thought they had a hearing loss, getting them in because they're noticing harder times with hearing.
Great. So you mentioned that your dream was to live in Florida, and we were talking earlier, and you lived in Jacksonville, Florida.
I did.
So how was that?
So we loved it down there. My husband was stationed down in Jacksonville, so he's also in the Navy. So a lot of military connections here. And he was stationed down in Florida, And that was also while I was completing my graduate program up at the University of Pittsburgh. So I spent a
Were
lot of
you
time.
in school, actual school during COVID?
No,
Or
so
was it like online?
It was, so I was done with I had my thesis to defend. That was the last thing that I needed to do, that they quickly said, you're going to do a Zoom meeting virtually. And we were like, what is that? How are we doing? And now it's like second nature to do something like that. But we were getting so creative because it's a big presentation.
Yeah.
I gave it like stacked up with different textbooks that I could stand and use my hands and all of that. And now thinking, I'm like, my God, I could have just sat down. It would have been fine. So I was essentially done. But the interesting thing with COVID and being down in Florida, so I was down in Florida because my husband was preparing to deploy for 9 months right at the start of COVID. So his ship was forward deploying over to Rota, Spain, where they currently are. That ship currently is now. He's finished that tour, so he's back here. But I was like, the military doesn't do anything on time. I was like, they don't do anything on time. It's not actually going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I was defending my thesis the Friday. So everything shut down with COVID like Monday. They were like, you're not going to graduate in person, like all these life events that, we took for granted. And then they're like, you're going to do your thesis and stuff online. We were like, okay, that's fine. We got it. We're creative. We're cool. And I was like, there's no way you're deploying. I was like, there's no way really, like, we saw what happened with some of these other things. There's just no way. And this was the one time that they decided to be,
and they actually went
on time. They left Saturday, the 21st.
Wow.
Of March.
My sister's husband deployed during COVID, and they did not touch land the entire time. Because of COVID. I'm like, what? I can't even imagine.
They had a really
like 10 months.
really cool tour lined up that they essentially just pulled in for. He's on a destroyer, so they still had to pull in for fuel every once in a while. But they were they were doing whole Europe, Mediterranean, all the way north.
But we know Florida, you guys don't follow rules. So during COVID, were you outside, or did you go to the beach and assess the weather?
Yes, there was very, very interesting. I was down in Florida for a lot of big 2020 events. Very different from other parts of the country. And I would say the biggest thing was trying to get my patients to be compliant just in clinic. I'm like, can you just put a mask on? Like, we have people that are 95 years old.
I live in Florida. What do you mean?
Oh, yes. So, and that's fine. I was like, right out in the parking lot, you could be as free as you want to be. I was like, here. So I would teach, and as you know, when people are wearing masks and hearing aids, you have to remember to like really think about it. Otherwise that hearing aid is going to end up in a grocery store on the floor. So I would always be like, okay, let's discuss putting the mask on over your hearing aid. How are we going to do this? And they're like, I don't wear a mask anywhere else but in front of you. I'm like, that's great. That's all I need to hear is just here right here. So I was down in Florida for full time. I was doing a lot of back and forth for the 4 years that I was up in Pittsburgh. I became a very familiar solo flyer back and forth. Every flight that I was on was delayed every single time. And I was only going down there for a weekend.
It was like every other seat was occupied. Like, for what? Like, we're still in the same plane. I don't get it. But it was great because the tickets were like $50. So that was nice.
And during COVID, my family lives up in Philadelphia. So I was back and forth a little bit too. Spent one of the months of the summer. I actually, before we knew where we were moving, I couldn't start being an audiologist because I didn't know what state we were going to. I was a nanny for a 6-week-old, so that was a blast. Held a baby all day. But when I drove from Philadelphia to Jacksonville, record time, because there was no one on the road, and I was like, is my car gonna get checked? Because we were in limbo as to also where we were moving. So we were kept supposed to get orders. I was like, all right, I'll do the move by myself. That way, when you come home, like we'll do what, we'll just start life wherever it'll be. And then
you're telling every military spouse story ever. Like
Yes.
after I got out of active duty, oh man, whenever my husband got orders, I was always like, I'm the first one to get there, get the house situated. Like, you got to get all of this done. And then they just come home to a house. Like, like I just did all this stuff. I got the kids in school, and
that's what we
it's
are
so
right now.
much. Yeah. It's
Just
so
the
much
two of
work.
us. So I cannot imagine doing
Mhm.
it. Like, trying to mentally prepare for more than one human to do this. But we ended up, it made more sense for us to just say, it got pushed back so much that I just stayed in Jacksonville, and I worked at a clinic down there that was looking for someone to cover for 3 months. And I was like, this is a military spouse's dream job. I'm only here for 3 months. And it was one of the most incredible and rewarding 3 to 4 months that I've ever had. Just worked in a really low income area, kind of doing what we can with what we had to give to them, and not sacrificing any level of care because they couldn't afford it. And then packed up. My husband came home. We had our pack up the next day. We cleaned up the next day, and we drove up to Virginia. So it was quick.
You got to leave a rewarding career that you love and just say, peace out, guys. I got to go because military, and a lot of times, we don't give military spouses enough credit, because just as children, like April is a military child month, the spouses, they're resilient also. They have to go through all these changes all the time, career changes. And so another thing I wanted to ask you is about your licensing. So do you have to get licensed from state to state, and it transfers?
That is a wonderful question. And thankfully, there is a lot of legislation going on right now for military spouses. So the ones that are in the allied health related fields, and lawyers, and they're going to slowly work on others too. But the nice thing is there are some states that hold reciprocity in other states. Virginia's not one, or the ones that I ran were not one of them, but it's a lot easy. The military, if you have current orders, they will cover your licensing. So you're able to get your licensing paid for, essentially the paperwork and the certificate paid for, by either your own orders or your family's orders. So you're able to submit that and just say, hey, we're PCSing to this area. I am current, I'm in good standing in this state. I need a license in this other one. And they're able to cover that. And it made it definitely a lot easier.
Makes life easier, because you don't I remember back before they passed those laws in most of the states, I had a friend who was a registered nurse and had to get re-registered. She's registered in 4 or 5 different states because of all the moves that she's done.
That's what a lot of military spouses have to think about is, okay, do I want to keep this license active just in case we move back there? Or when you're like for me, a lot of my friends in my audiology graduating class were like, oh, I'm sending my test scores and everything to this state. And I'm like, oh, just pick 5, I guess. And hopefully we end up in one of those 5 we didn't. So then I sent it to a 6th one. But that is definitely something that is a bit of a challenge and a bit of a hindrance for people getting into these types of fields that require a license, because it's very intimidating. But something that I think was nice is, as a military spouse, my friends and I that are also spouses have really come to say that's not our whole identity, in the sense that we don't need to put everything on pause, even though sometimes we have to. There's always a workaround. And right now, when you add children into it, things like that, it does make it harder just from a childcare standpoint, but unfortunately everybody is dealing with that right now. But something that we always said was, while it's part of our identity, it's not our whole one.
You don't make your husband's job your entire identity.
Exactly.
And dependas.
Yes, some of the dependas do. And they exist. You meet them and you're like, I know you.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that was very interesting to grasp in the military community because you are treated as nothing until you're married. As far as just being a spouse to someone in active duty or in military service, you get your dependent card and you're like, oh, you don't love that word. But at the same time, it is what it is, but I don't say like, oh, I am his, like sometimes I say it as a joke, like you're dependent.
My husband goes, there you go, dependent. I'm like, excuse me, I was active duty. What do you mean? Right. I have degrees, you know, but I think this is a perfect topic for National Moving Month, because May, I mean, it's National Moving Month. That's when school's over and like the houses go for sale, and most people, service members, are PCSing this time because they cater towards their children's school year, right? And so I remember when I was in Hawaii, and this was back in like 2015, so not long ago. We were there from 2012 to 2015, and I was getting my BSBA in accounting there, and like they were trying to, and I was going in person school at University of Hawaii, Hawaii Pacific University, and they were trying to transfer my husband in March, and I was like, you know what, you can just go, because I literally went to like 4 colleges already, right? And I'm like, I'm not leaving until I graduate in May. Like, there's no way. So he thankfully had a good detailer that allowed him to stay till like literally the day after I graduated. We had to move to New Orleans. But so I mean, it was a lot of life changes. I got my BSBA in accounting, and because of that licensing stuff, I never did my CPA.
And that's what
it's a lot. Like,
it's a lot. One of my friends is actually going through that same situation right now. She received her same degree that you had from down in Jacksonville. She went to a couple different colleges before being able to graduate from there, and then they PCSed over to Rhoda, and she's like, well, I'm not going to do anything. I can't do anything here. That's where you are. That's where you do feel like a true dependent is overseas. I hear, just because you really can't work to do anything. But that's the same. She's like, I don't know where I'm going to get, where that license is going to come in. So it is a very
hard, especially when you're international. Like, I don't know how, because before we move, thankfully we have orders at least 3 months in advance. But I'm always looking at jobs like 6 months to a year of all these possible places. And so that's how I landed Jacksonville. My husband's actually, he's GeoBatch right now. So he's actually in Virginia on a ship out there. But I'm out here in Jacksonville, and he's going to retire in the next few years. So I'm like, we're just going to settle down and establish roots here. So, I mean, as a spouse, I'm like, dude, I'm tired. I'm tired of moving. As a spouse, I was tired. And then I also did it when I was active duty. And I was like, listen, I'm done. I'm like, because every time I have to change my career or look for, a lateral transfer, and I work in the government, and that doesn't work that way. You can't just be like, oh, my husband's PCSing, let me transfer to this same office, but in this state. You can't do that. You have to actually apply for the job and compete for it. Like, it's not easy. So,
well, and that's what it's a big discussion right now in the military spouse community is, do you disclose that you are a military spouse?
No,
and
you're
a lot
supposed
of
to, but I never do.
Until you see what your resume looks like. And thankfully, where I work right now is very, very supportive. They did know it from the beginning, because they were like, you've lived in 3 different states in the last, 6 months. And they were very supportive. But I think that's also because we work with a lot of veterans, and the DC area is a revolving door. Everybody is moving. You don't have to just be a military spouse to have a partner that is in a job that rotates or is contractor, things like that. So the place where I work is very, very understanding, but I'm also in a private practice right now, whereas some hospital networks, though they cannot legally say that they didn't hire you because of your potential to move, a lot of them, like their HR department will say there's just not enough time to train you. And it's a big debate in the speech pathology audiology world right now.
It's a huge debate. And I learned not to say that I was a military spouse because I had a very great job in Hawaii, and they were like bright. They pretty much were giving me all these bonuses and a raise to stay because
Mhm.
it was a great job. I was like a regional manager for H&R Block, and they were like, "We need you. You need to stay here."
H&R Block I don't
Yeah.
love right now, but
Right,
I
but
like you. Don't love them right now.
and they were like, "Well, we're gonna like let you have 3 offices in this whole side of the island," and I'm like, and they're gonna give me thousands and thousands of dollars, and I'm like, I can't stay. I'm a military
Yes.
spouse. And then like after I left, I heard that district manager said that he'll never hire a military spouse again because they were just so devastated that I left because I made such an impact on the company that I just had to go. And they were like, like, but so the next jobs after that, I lied through my teeth. I was like, "Oh, I'm staying here for the long run. I love it here, and my family's actually retiring." Or I tell them, "Oh, my husband was." I said, "My husband was, but he's not retiring for like another 6 years, right?" But
Right.
I will tell them like, "Oh yeah, my husband's retired, and we're staying here for the long run." So I would lie through my fucking teeth when I'm doing the interviews or resumes or whatever phone
It's
interviews.
very interesting. And there are some spouses that will also say, well, when you say you won't hire someone because of that, then you're kind of disrespecting the military
Right.
a little bit
Mhm.
too. And there are some spouses that'll say, I just won't work there. If what my family has to do every few years is not respected, then is that really a company that I want to work for?
Right.
So it
Exactly.
is really, it's a very, I talked to all of my professors about it before I graduated. And I asked one of them, as she was the director of audiology at the University of Pittsburgh, I was like, would you not hire someone because of this? And she said, no, like legally we can't. And also, like, if you're a good candidate and you're qualified, then you're a good candidate and you're qualified. And I thought that was motivating to hear, because all you hear is the not as good side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears.
Well, I
So,
think in the DC area. No, sorry,
but
Lynn, go ahead.
it's fine. We were talking on the pre-show about it's also Celiac Disease Awareness Month, and I wasn't aware of that. So why don't you tell us, Clifford? Don't you have some celiac disease stories? Tell us a little bit about
Oh
your
yeah.
experience with that.
Oh yeah. So my younger sister has 2 kids that have celiacs, and we were talking in the pre-show about, but they were in rural Missouri, and when they were diagnosed in the early 2000s, I think it was, or late 90s, there wasn't gluten-free food available. And anybody knows anything about celiac is you can't have gluten. That's anything with wheat products or certain noodles. So you have to completely change their diet because how it affects their gut, and it's really
Yeah.
painful and what they go through. And it was actually that robbing their bodies of nutrients, because their body was fighting and attacking the gluten in their system, and so other things were getting passed on. And so when I would leave, and I was stationed in Virginia at the time, and so when I would go home to Missouri, I'd load my car up with all this gluten-free food because you could get it in Virginia. So my sister would have it, and then eventually, they can get gluten. But I think a lot of people don't understand. People talk about celiacs, they talk about gluten-free diets, but I don't think they really understand what it is to have that disease and carry it forward. And fortunately, Jenna was telling us in the pre-show that she actually has celiac disease and how it affects her. And I know for Emily, my sister's youngest, when she was having issues, she stopped eating gluten. Everything was good, and things were going good. This is a note that I brought up because I didn't even think about it. But her levels were still high, and they couldn't figure out why. Well, come to find out, it was the lotion she was using. And I was thinking, who would ever even think about lotion
I
having
had no
gluten in it? But they
idea.
put gluten in everything. It's pretty amazing. And
Helps
so
everything stay together. It's an agent that helps everything stay together.
Like
So the
thicken and
lotion,
stay together.
exactly, it's a thickening agent in a lot of foods too, but definitely lotion as well.
So you also said it's also in like prescription pills. So I mean, what do I do then? Like, how are they gonna take, like, say if I need Motrin and I'm going to the corpsman and I told them I have a stomach ache or hurting, and they give me an 800 milligram Motrin, that has what's it called in it? Gluten in it.
Yeah.
So
And a lot of the over the counter is fine. It's the ones that are those one-off prescriptions that you have to be careful with. But yes, it's very interesting. And I will say that there is a little bit to thank with gluten being a fad diet, because with that, a lot more food options have become available. So the people with celiac, while like I want everyone to do what is best for their body. But there are some people that, don't believe celiac is real, all that. We don't need to get into that. But with that more quote fad side of it, every restaurant now that you go to has a gluten-free option, or they at least know about it. Because a lot of
and pizza is a big deal.
pizza is a big deal, and
Yeah.
I'm on a mission to find the best gluten-free pizza
Right.
trucks, and I've tried a lot around
Mhm.
Alexandria, Virginia, but you just get used to it. I know it doesn't taste good. I mean, God bless my husband, he eats gluten-free pasta now because it's just, we don't make 2 pots, and I'm like, do you miss it? Do you miss the real stuff?
It gets crumbly kind of faster
So
than
I
regular pasta.
I found good ones.
What brand do you use?
So Trader Joe's
Okay.
has a good quinoa based one. You want to look for something that has more than just one ingredient. So corn based pasta only has corn. Corn gets pretty translucent, just like rice does. So there are some brands, like I look for like the corn and quinoa mix. Banza makes naturally gluten-free pasta with protein in it too. So a lot of things that I was trying to do after my celiac diagnosis was, how do I get this protein back? Because food would just go through me. So I wasn't absorbing anything.
Flushed it out.
And so finding, like, it just really is amazing, and it's not immediate. The effects of just, I now eat gluten-free for one day, it takes months. And then, or for me, at least it took a long time, because I had so much damage done that I
heard it takes years to just get it like all out of your system. And like, I know I need to get a test, because whenever I eat anything with gluten, I feel sick. I get bloated. I'm immediately tired. And then how do you go about asking a doctor, hey, let me get this test? Like, how do I know if I am or not,
So I will say what I did for me. One of my best friends also got a late celiac diagnosis, and she was like, this sounds exactly like you. So she also was kind of a motivator for me, because at that point, when you complain I had very targeted stomach pains right where your stomach and your small intestine meet for years.
I thought that's normal. And obviously as I get older, it's worse.
And they would, scan stuff. Oh, nothing. And then there does come a time where you're like, okay, am I making this up? Am I being dramatic? Am I being nervous for no reason? And finally, but at the time, like, the word celiac we're talking not even 10 years ago, but that celiac wasn't as regularly tested. So it wasn't anything that when I would, complain of it, like, they were just like, oh, it just kind of is what it is. I mean, I grew up eating pasta every single day. Every single day. I come from an Italian family where all we know how to do is eat 8-course meals of pasta at everyone.
All carbs.
So all carbs. So this is one of the things where it's like, is it really that? And then I thought it was, milk sensitivity. And this whole time, that's probably what it was. I mean, I would have such a brain fog. Like, I could have a conversation with you and then really not sure if I'm even present during that conversation. And finally, I asked my primary care doctor I was seeing at the University of Pittsburgh Health Clinic, like, of all places. They were just like, she was like, yeah, let's just do blood work. I'll call you with the results. And they got me set up there. And then I was seen by a nutritionist at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, UPMC, and they were fabulous, because you essentially have to teach yourself how to eat again and teach yourself not to be scared of eating. Because that was one of the things that you hear a lot of is, well, can't you just eat a little bit? can't you just do a little bit? Oh, it's just one thing. And I'm like, do you not realize the amount of work that I've had to put into it, both mentally and physically, to get to this point? I already was a little nervous with allergies with I have anaphylaxis to peanuts. So already a little nervous about that. But the nutritionist was like, you're just going to learn how to eat again and you're not going to starve. Reminded me of that. You are not going to starve. You are going to eat things and the food is going to taste good. And it does. And there are some things that you really cannot taste the difference. I mean, when you add a lot of butter to something, it doesn't taste any different. So
we always have this running joke when, it became a fad, that this bag of apples literally had a sticker, gluten-free. Like, well, no shit, it's apples. What do you mean? Why would there be gluten in there?
I know. And there are some foods are trickier than others. Like there are, tortilla chips are generally pretty safe until you go to a restaurant. They're like, oh, we used wheat with those. And I'm like,
the flour ones. Mm-hmm.
So there are definitely some ones that are a little trickier than others, but it's one of those things where I'm happy that I was old enough to be an advocate for myself for it too. And then also just kind of taking ownership of it and looking at, I always was someone that would look at menus before I would go there, but now I really am, to make sure that it's something that something that I can eat there. But yes, Celiac Awareness Month. Let's go.
I know.
It's a fun time.
It's
better speech and hearing month. Got that one. Celiac Awareness Month. Got that one.
Yep.
Moving. Thankfully not moving. We are not moving, but we are selling as a plug. If anyone needs a house in Jacksonville, we are selling our house in Jacksonville, Florida.
You said Fort Caroline.
Fort Caroline.
No,
I don't know where that's at. I just moved here in October. I'm at Beaches area.
So if your beaches are here, go up towards Mayport,
and
then
you gotta cross the ferry.
No, not all the way up there. So go up to like you're about to go to Mayport and Hannah Park. Turn left and then take that road all the way down.
Oh, okay. That's kind of near me.
It is not far from Beaches.
There's a hike there. Yes. Okay. And like you could see the river and all that stuff. I did that hike. Okay, cool. Yeah, I know exactly where that's at.
So Fort Caroline is beautiful. I mean, we're in a neighborhood near there. We're not one of the houses on the river. We're not one of the houses on the river. But
it's a great area. I love it.
Yeah, we have been renting the house out down there and utilize HoverGirl Properties, which is a military founded.
What is it called?
Company. HoverGirl.
HoverGirl. Okay. Cool.
So they were our property managers. They were very helpful for me when I was getting the house ready alone. They helped me like decorate it. I was running around, of course, up until the last minute for them to come and take pictures. And she's like, okay, like, where do we want to put this? What do we want to do here? So
it's for sale in Duval.
Yes.
So fun fact, this I heard that the past 2 years, Duval County and Jacksonville is the most moved to city.
It is.
One of the reasons is that our mayor, he's been putting up billboards in major cities like New York, LA, or DC saying, come move to Jacksonville.
Well, I will say, of any Ubers that we took, like in the Jacksonville area, to either go downtown, go down to Beaches, whatever, none of them were Jacksonville born and raised.
It's so hard to find a local, like, it's so hard to find like a native Jacksonvilleonian. I don't even know how to say it.
I don't think they exist. There's not a word for it. I don't think they exist.
They're like unicorns.
They really are. And it was a cool place because it had some of the northern influences. Very pretty. We loved our time there. I mean, there is not something to be said about walking on the beach in December. There's just something to be said about it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful feeling.
Let's see what else. So I have this whole calendar of like what it is for a month of May. So we have the better speech and language, celiac disease, correct your posture, definitely.
Okay, let me
need some of that too.
It's national.
Listen, driving 9 hours.
It's National Asparagus Month. Like,
I like asparagus.
And then the cheese month, of course. health and fitness, and brain cancer and brain tumor awareness month, foster care month, National Barbecue Month. So it's National
There
Barbecue
you
Month,
go.
and it's National Military Appreciation Month. So we have, at the end of this month, we have Memorial Day, and a lot of people, kick started off with a barbecue. But we all know what Memorial Day is for, and that's to remember those who have gone before us and made the ultimate sacrifice, right? So let's see what else. Salad month, salsa month. It's Cinco de Mayo.
Date your mate month.
Date your mate. So I don't know. I mean, every time we do these shows, I try to talk about something relevant and what's going on. And you know what? So I was on TikTok, and for some reason I am on the ASL algorithm now. And that's when I
Once
first
you're
heard
there,
about.
once you're there,
Yeah.
you do not
And
get
it's
off that
so
web.
cool. There's this girl, she has a cochlear implant, and she's deaf. But she's on beat with the songs, and she's also signing the song and dancing. It's really
So
cool.
a
That's
lot of
how
them feel the rhythm through the
Yeah.
bass. So they can, stand next to a speaker and feel the bass of it. And that's how it also supplements listening to music. It is a beautiful, beautiful language. And there are stores around here, around Gallaudet University, that are staffed and owned by people whose primary language is American Sign Language. And it encourages people to step outside their comfort zone when they're trying to order a Starbucks coffee or something.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that where the Starbucks, ASL Starbucks is over there in DC, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got on that TikTok.
Oh
It's
yeah.
on my
So
algorithm for some reason now.
It is very, it is a absolutely beautiful, beautiful language. And it's very culture, there are cultural dialects, that's the word, dialects depending on where you live in the country too. So you have a little bit of the slang. There's a Southern twang ASL version.
I thought it was really
cool.
neat when I was at Disney World and they're doing this parade, and it's so loud. You can't even hear if you're talking right next to the person. But these people are across the street talking about, I want to order a churro, doing sign language. It was so cool. I'm like, wow, they're just literally just communicating from across the street. Just sign language. And everyone's over here yelling at each other because we can't hear them so loud. We've all been to Disneyland or Disney World, and it gets pretty hectic there. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, it is. It's a very cool language, and a lot of it's a manual language. So babies, before they can move their tongues and form those words, a lot of them have better control over their hand movement. Yeah. So
I taught my daughter.
Baby sign is a big thing. Big thing. And it's so nice.
Yeah, I remember when I was a new mom again, and it was a while since I had a baby. I think it was, the age difference is probably 8 or 9 years. And so I was like, oh, I learned that you can teach your baby sign language. So my daughter knew change diaper or milk. And I forgot what else it was, and more. She knew how to sign some of those. So that's pretty cool how babies can learn that.
Oh yeah. And it just stimulates your brain. You're learning. So it stimulates the language center. And there's a lot of people that'll say that it doesn't, but it does. And speech pathologists are the same. You're not doing any harm and any delays by teaching your baby some baby sign, because it's really teaching them the independence to take ownership on what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It is pretty awesome.
Well, Dr. Valenia, it's such an honor to have you on our show. It was so nice speaking with you. We're going to go ahead and close it out. Do you have any closing remarks for our audience?
One, thank you so much for having me. And two, it's been a lot of fun to be able to give back to the community in different ways. It's nice to work in a career that allows me and allows others in our profession to be able to do that. And we always encourage routine hearing screenings. If you have any concerns, or if your partner has any concerns for you, you should
Husbands.
come in. Yes, come in and get it
Right.
checked. It's always good to, I think something that we're starting to do more during COVID now is just take ownership of our health, and our hearing is part of that.
Right on. Clifford, you said you had the new shirts. Plug in your website. What is your website?
Oh, yeah. You go to clifford.w.bauman, my website, and hopefully soon these will be available on Veteran Trash Talk. You can get your Mental Health Warrior t-shirt, and you can maybe save a life. I also want to say, Dr. Lady, I want to thank you for not only giving me the hearing aids that you got me, because they're pretty awesome. But all the little things that I missed, with my little one. I got a 7-year-old and an 18-year-old watch. And it's amazing when you can hear things again, how much you missed. And my family would always tell me, why are you yelling at me? Why are you always mad, Dad? And I wasn't, because I didn't realize how loud I was talking, because I couldn't hear myself. And so I was screaming at him and didn't realize it. They always said, Dad, why are you mad? Why are you mad? And, the hearing aids are great. I mean, you can't even see them. I mean, they're little. So they go in and out pretty easy. Nobody ever, of course, I don't think about it now. The one she got me now fit a lot more comfortable, excuse me, and better than the ones I had before. But quick funny story, my mom was dead set against hearing aids, dead set against it. Her mom had the old style hearing aids. I'm talking back in the 80s. And my mom's like, I'm not getting hearing aids. And my mom couldn't hear crap. And so I got my hearing aids. And I'm like, hey, Mom, here, just try it out. Just try that a little bit, And she put it in, and it wasn't even a couple months later with her hearing aids. I think I didn't pay because 5 kids pitched in and bought them for her, and it completely changed her life. And she was in her mid-70s and getting hearing aids for 20 years. So it's pretty awesome.
Great.
So I want to thank you for coming on the show and all that you do. And I guess I'm going to see you next month for my checkup, so you can turn my hearing aids up again, because I'm getting used to the sound again. So and with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Lynn, to close this out.
All right. Thanks so much again, Dr. Valenia. Thanks for that closeout,
Thank
Cliff.
you.
You guys go ahead and check us out on www.VeteranTrashTalk.com. You'll find our shop there, all the shirts, all of our shows, our YouTube shows, our podcast shows. We're available on all platforms. Check us out on Facebook. Our group is called VTT Official. We have Facebook pages for Throat Punch Monday, for Pacific Tita, for the Mental Health Warrior, and make sure to get your hearing checked, guys. So that's it for today. And thanks so much for joining us on Throat Punch Monday, guys. See you next time.
Take care.